Copyright disclaimer. Under Section 107 of the Copyright Act 1976, allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, teaching, education, scholarship, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by the copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Non-profit, educational, or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use. Viewer discretion is advised.
Commentator is James Coy. At Cairo, within shadow of the ancient pyramids where Rommel's African offensive was crushed, the fate of Japan is resolved by China, the United States, and Great Britain. Prime Minister Churchill confers with Madame Chang Kai-check, who attends the conference as interpreter for her husband, China's Generalissimo. Here, for the first time, Chinese, American, and British plan their strategy on a unified basis for future thrusts at Nippon, thrusts to eventually seal Japan's fate. From Egypt, the war meetings shift to the heavily guarded Soviet embassy in Iran, where Russia's Joseph Stalin makes his military debut on foreign soil. He joins President and Prime Minister to plan present and future strategy against Hitler and his aggressor allies. Joint Chiefs of Staff and the Prime Minister's daughter, Sarah Churchill Oliver, of the WAAF attend. President Roosevelt introduces Mrs. Oliver to Stalin. Then follows an historic ceremony. The Prime Minister presents Marshal Stalin with a Sword of Honor, a gift from his sovereign to the heroic people of Stalingrad. The President admires the symbol of solidarity.
Your commentator is Ray Henley. The hard road to Tokyo. An American armada laden with United States Marines steams ahead to Tarawa. Before the dawn of battle, chaplains lead our men in prayer. Then from the peace of prayer, the roar of battle ensues. The seas are peppered with gunfire to protect our vessels from lurking enemy submarines. First, our warships unleash a tremendous pre-landing bombardment. Then thousands of rounds of ammunition are loaded into barges. The first wave of attacking Marines starts toward shore in amphibious tractors and landing boats under a terrific naval barrage to shield them from enemy fire. thousands of tons of aerial bombs are rained upon Tarawa's waterfront and beachheads as the shore lights up like the crack of doom. On come our heavily manned landing craft as naval gunfire mounts to an unbelievable crescendo of thunder, smoke, and fire. The Marines press on toward shore, unaware that the coral reef that skirts Tarawa will not allow close landing. Landing boats are abandoned as the Marines are forced to wade ashore under terrific crossfire from Jap machine gunners and snipers. Our first assault battalions are cut to ribbons, but wave after wave of Marines continues to land and forge ahead to battle down the strongly entrenched enemy. Here in a veritable no man's land, 4,000 Imperial Jap Marines fight to the last against our oncoming leathernecks. Here at an appalling cost of life, our men seek to wrest this all-important island from the enemy, who seized it from a few missionaries and natives shortly after the Jap sneak attack on Pearl Harbor. Jap pillboxes are blown up, along with the enemy's permanent concrete gun shelters, sunken 20 feet into the ground. The shell-shattered terrain is strewn with enemy casualties. On every hilltop, Japs are entrenched, ready and waiting for the assault, holed in a bomb-proof shelters, pouring an incessant rain of steel from their strongholds. A flamethrower goes into action. Japs in a pillbox are trapped and destroyed. More landing boats, bringing reinforcements, race through the choppy sea to land on the beachhead as the intensity of the battle increases. On the second day, the battle reaches its venomous height. Back in the island's desolate wastes, our men wage the grimmest battle the Marines have ever fought. The wounded receive constant care as stretcher bearers hurriedly return the maimed and suffering behind the battle lines for emergency treatment and life-giving plasma. And here in the thick of battle, a fearless cameraman photographs a stirring and dramatic episode. Another concrete enemy pillbox is discovered, a sunken fortification from which the Japs snipe many a brave Marine. Cautiously, the Marines stalk the enemy with guns held in readiness. But the guns and hearts of all but one of the trapped Japs have been stilled. For 3 days and 3 nights the battle rages, a battle that ranks with the most bitter and concentrated engagements in all American military history. Crossfire sweeps the trees like a tropical hurricane. Millions of bullets, hundreds of tons of explosives pour into the stubborn Japanese. Every yard of Jap positions is raked by fire and shot. United States gunfire is ceaseless, and here in the heat of battle, we see a group of frightened, terror-stricken Japs rushing to a safe haven, which they never attained. Admiral Hill and Marine General Smith, who led the attack. As the crescendo of battle lessens, a frightened kitten, the only living thing for acres around, emerges into the light, and a battle-scarred Marine meekly shares his canteen with a helpless creature. This smiling Marine exhibits a near miss. Tarawa is won, but the record is grim. 1,026 gallant Marines will never return. 2,557 are wounded. The price of victory was high and might have been greater had not the heroism of the attacking Marines overcome the unexpected waterfront hazards that took such a devastating toll. The surviving men returned to the shore carrying their wounded. Others marched to camp over the shattered sand dunes and beneath the shell-raked coconut palms, out of the holocaust of war, into the warmth of a tropical sun. Tarawa was impregnable, the Japs claimed, but they forgot to tell it to the Marines. Grim faces pass Lieutenant Colonel Arnold Johnston, who salutes his surviving comrades. At Guadalcanal, the United States Marines first raised Old Glory on enemy soil, and now at Tarawa, they unfurl our symbol of victory, a victory second to none in the annals of courage, daring, and heroism, always faithful to the traditions of their corps and their country.
Your commentator is James Coy. Fierce fighting in Egypt. British and Nazi armies battle furiously before the gates to the Near East, the vitally strategic land of the pyramids. Three times Nazi Field Marshal Rommel smashes eastward toward Suez, his artillery blasting the desert. Twice the British counterdrives to the west. Mastery of the air is won first by the Axis, then by the British. And mastery of the shell-torn sands of Libya seesaws back and forth. There goes the alert, and hardy desert fighters come from dugouts on the double to man the anti-aircraft batteries. There's a hit, and down to earth comes a Nazi bomber, one of hundreds knocked out of the sky. Cautiously, a soldier looks for signs of life, but there are no survivors. The defenders of Libya and Egypt reach their critical front when Rommel's columns clash with the British in the desert wilderness between Bir Hakeim and the coast. Here, American General Grant tanks get their baptism of fire. On the burning desert, first the tanks advance, then a smoke screen shields the advancing troops. The RAF, reinforced by American airmen, roars into the battle to blast the enemy supply lines. Now they're over the target. A German supply base and unprotected. A bombardier's dream. Here go the eggs. Then follows the flowery pattern of destruction in the hot sands below. The drama of battle nears a climax, but not a decision. Out of action, this German tank stopped the shell. Rommel's battered forces are halted and pushed back. His air power is reduced. Field artillery pieces are battered, some beyond repair. The medical corps is constantly on the alert to administer to those who can be attended on the field. The more seriously injured are moved slowly to the rear in lumbering ambulances. And here is something of the fortunes of war. The best of fighting men sometimes are forced to surrender. Rommel's second in command, the Nazi General Ludwig Kruvel, salutes his captor. The war is over for these men who would like to be going back to Rome and Berlin, but they're on their way to internment. A British prison camp is at the end of the rainbow for them. Now the battle for Egypt shifts to the sea. Britain desperately needs supplies and reinforcements for her valiant Eighth Army. A convoy from Gibraltar approaches the hot spot of the Mediterranean, the narrow straits between Tunis and Sicily. German and Italian dive bombers and torpedo planes begin the attack, and there's a close one. A continuous curtain of fire must be maintained to save this British convoy. But the enemy is under the sea, too. Listening devices detect the sound of submarines close by. Destroyers answer with depth bombs. Another wave of enemy planes roars into attack, dropping bomb after bomb, and all dangerously close. A gun crew makes a direct hit. It's one of El Duce's war eagles whose wings are clipped forever. And here's one of the most astounding scenes ever taken under fire. A huge enemy bomber staggers down to flaming destruction. Dusk approaches, and destroyers begin to lay down a smoke screen as reconnaissance planes report naval units moving into attack. The coming of night only brings on more intense action. Another dawn comes to the flaming desert. Tobruk has fallen. The RAF is desperately pounding Rommel's supply lines to halt his advance, and they stop him at Mersa Matruh. Mastery of the air still belongs to Egypt's defenders, but neither side has mastery over the blinding, choking sandstorms that torture men and machines alike. Now, the enemy's lengthening communication lines must be bombed. More American planes join the RAF. A sudden and dramatic change in command brings General Sir Claude Auchinleck to rally the battered Eighth Army and halt Rommel at the very gates of Egypt. Supply lines for Auchinleck's men are short, and reinforcements pour in from Cairo and Alexandria. There is a constant rumble of heavy trucks all through the back areas. Just as naval forces mine the seas, desert fighters mine the sands, burying tank traps loaded with TNT to stop the next assault of the Nazi armored divisions. Gun emplacements are set up to hang a curtain of steel in the sky if dive bombers attempt an attack. A fearless cameraman pictures the shelling of a supply train in the thick of the fighting. Tanks and trucks get through the shell fire to provide desperately needed reinforcements. The Nazi artillery, firing blindly, harasses Auchinleck's men and machines constantly. Here goes an American plane to join a squadron with orders to disrupt the thinning lines of enemy communications. The defenders are forced to salvage disabled tanks, even under fire. They have lost far too many in the retreat from Tobruk to wait for another convoy to bring more. This one's too close for comfort. And so, the fight for Egypt goes on. In the air, in the desert, and at sea. It's a desperate battle, a battle in which strategy and leadership are vital to victory.